All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number one. That is right, week number one of your 9407 class, which is your intellectual freedom class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. J.S.K. Austin, and what we are going to do this week is this is going to be our introductory check-in video. For those of you who have not had me before, I record check-in videos on most weeks that we do not have a sync session. We will have 3 sync sessions this semester, so I will not be recording check-in videos those weeks. But we are not there yet, so you get one this week and you'll get one next week as well. Again, these are things that, excuse me, if you have not had me in a class before, these check-in videos is something that I do. And if you have had me in a class before, you probably heard me say that I get them up by Tuesday night / Wednesday morning. I have 4 classes this semester instead of 3 classes, so now it's probably going to be by Wednesday afternoon. But I will get them up as close to the beginning of the week as I can, but as you all know, everybody has other obligations. But yeah, this check-in video is actually going to be a lot longer. For one thing, I am going to show you how to speed up these check-in videos because I am a Southerner. I talk slow, so one thing that I'm going to show you how to do toward the beginning of this video, and I'm also going to show you how to do this I'm going to put the directions in the check-in video announcement as well, but I'm going to show you how to speed up a check-in video. If you speed me up to 1.5 speed, that you will probably still be able to understand what I say because again, because I speak so slowly, and that will knock off about 33% of the time of the video if you watch it at 1.5 speed. So there you go. But this video will have, again, it'll be longer because it's the introductory check-in video, which is going to be a course overview. So this one might approach 2 hours, unfortunately. That said, I'm going to tell you when there are going to be logical transitions and times to take breaks. Go ahead, take those breaks. Also, if you elect to watch these, all check-in videos are going to be optional unless otherwise noted, but if you elect to watch them, then yes, go ahead, take breaks, have a snack while you watch. You can have a beer while you watch, all that stuff, or some wine, or your beverage of choice. It's something that you can watch typically in a relaxed state, okay? But we're going to go ahead and get this started. The first thing that I want to do is show you how to speed one up. So what I'm going to do, I upload these into YouTube because YouTube does have a very reliable feature for auto captioning, and there is a reason why I need to, it's basically accessibility compliance for those who have handicaps. I need to make sure that all of my videos can be captioned so that people who have any sort of disability and maybe hearing impaired or something like that, they can watch the captions. But the captions tend to help even students who decide to watch and don't have disabilities. They do prefer watching with the captions a lot of times so that they catch everything that I say. I guess I have a really bad accent. But yes, so if you want to speed a YouTube video up, this is how you do it. So I'm going to play this video here and you'll see it in normal speed. All right, and then what you can do to speed it up, you can go here and you can go to playback speed. And again, if you speed it up to 1.5, my students tell me that when they speed up to 1.5, they're still able to understand everything I say. So you'll notice a difference here. All right, and so there you have it. So as you can see, the video sped up, and you can also slow videos down and that sort of thing with the same feature. But yes, putting me on 1.5 speed will typically still allow you to hear everything that I say. All right, so now that we got that part out of the way, I want to just kind of explain why I even do these check-in videos. Basically, because they're all optional, basically there are research has shown there are 2 types of students in college programs. There's the type of student who wants to just go ahead and take the class, get the A, get the degree, and move on. They're basically trying to get a better job or a better career situation, and this degree is a means to an end. They don't necessarily want to have any connection with the professors or anything like that. Just let me get the degree and let me be on my way. And then there's a second type of student that actually finds some sort of they seek some sort of mentorship, some sort of leadership, and some sort of guidance from the professors that they encounter in their degree programs. And so these videos are mostly for the latter. These are for those who decide that, yes, I do want to kind of sponge in some of the knowledge of my professors. I do want to kind of learn from my professors who have been doing this for a long time. I want to learn different things about the field from them. I want to have a relationship with them. I want to have a ongoing dialogue with them. And so the check-in videos, which are optional, are mostly for the latter. They're for those of you who decide, yes, I have professors who have been in this field for a long time, and I can learn from them, and I can get little tricks of the trade from them, and I can maybe network through them, and I can maybe I might decide that this is somebody that I want to work with one day, that I want to publish with one day, or that I want to seek guidance from when I publish. This might be somebody that I want to write a letter of recommendation for me, and so forth and so on. So if you are the latter type of student and these check-in videos are for you, and you may want to decide to watch some of these check-in videos, or maybe even all of them throughout the semester, but I will say that you're going to do, you have a good chance to do fine in this class regardless of whether you or not you watch the check-in videos. Your success in this class isn't contingent on you watching the check-in videos, but the check-in videos do also at times help contextualize what's going on in the class, and so it can make the class make a lot more sense as well. So there's that going on as well. Whether you watch is up to you. All right, so what we're going to do is and take a break after I say this little part. I'll tell you when to take a break. But what we're going to do, we're first going to go over the announcements that are already in the class, and I'm going to do a syllabus overview. Then I'm going to explain the assignments, and then we're going to get into a few other things just about housekeeping, myself, all of those things. All right, so go ahead and take a break right now, and then come back and meet me, and we will do the we will go over the announcements. Talk to you soon. All right, so glad to have y'all back. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to talk about the course announcements that are already in the course, and then after that we will go ahead and talk about the syllabus and do a course overview from there. All right, so let's get into it. We are going to go first to the announcements, just to review the announcements that we have already put in the class, and we will start with your Welcome to Intellectual Freedom class. So, all right, so first I want to thank y'all for your patience as far as getting this class live. So welcome to Intellectual Freedom. Very, very excited to have y'all in the course, and I do hope that this is going to be an enjoyable course for you. The first thing that you should do, of course, is read the announcements. After you read the announcements, go ahead and read over the syllabus, look around at the modules as well, and then after you've looked at the modules, then you can go ahead and finish the, complete the work that is in the first module, the readings, and also the discussions for the week. All right, now, I've already talked about the check-in videos, so there's no need to rehash all of that. And the last thing that I want to say, well, the last few things that I want to say here, first of all, there is no textbook for this course. There is a intellectual freedom manual that is available for free or through the Mizzou libraries. You can, it's not the latest edition of the intellectual freedom manual. I believe it's the second to latest edition of the Intellectual Freedom Manual. However, again, it's available for free, so if you want something that you can just kind of look at as the class goes by, that information is a little bit out of date, but it's still very relevant because a lot of these dilemmas and these topics and things that we talk about are timeless. So you do have a free resource that you can kind of look at if you choose to, but there is no required textbook for you to buy. Also, please try to build a community with one another. That's one thing that I want y'all to do while you are in my course, whether it's this course or any course that I teach. That I want y'all to know, and I tell people this all the time, I am not where I am because I'm smart. I'm not where I am because I'm handsome. I'm where I am because I networked and I was willing to actually talk to people. So while some of the other people that I knew who were young to the profession back in 2006, 2007, 2008, when I was first starting out, a lot of those people were smarter than me, and yet they didn't make it to where I am because when it came to networking, they were either like church mice and afraid to do it, or they thought it was beneath them to talk to people and meet people or whatever. But whatever the case, in this field, a lot of it goes to personality. A lot of it goes to people being willing to say, or people wanting to say, hey, I would like to work with that person one day. And if somebody says, I would like to work with that person, I would like to publish with that person, I would like to do something with that person, that is what gets your foot at the door. And that is what gets you into a lot of these opportunities out here in the field. Okay. So please, it starts now. I started, this is actually my 20th year anniversary in the field, as far as if you look at when I started as a library science student. I started library science school at North Carolina Central University in August of 2006. So this is my 20-year anniversary. And yes, that was an on-campus program, and I networked my tail off that entire time. I networked with my classmates. I went to conferences, state conferences when I could. Thankfully, I had a scholarship, so I got to go to some national conferences as well. But wherever I went, I networked, and that's what y'all need to do as well if you want to maximize your potential, okay? And then finally, yes, there are errors in the course. So whenever you see an error that's in the course, if you see, for instance, that that due dates are inconsistent, or that point values and rubrics and things like that are inconsistent, if you see anything like that that doesn't look right, bring it to my attention. Sometimes I'm right and you're wrong, but sometimes, yes, I have made a mistake. I'm human, as we all are, and I will fix the mistakes that are in the class. I definitely want to do that so that we have the best experience that we possibly can. All right, so that is it for this announcement. Let's look at the other announcement really quick. The other announcement, we'll talk about our sync sessions, okay? So we do have 3 sync sessions. I tend to have, unless I'm not the owner of the course in any of my 15-week courses, there will be 3 sync sessions. Generally, the reason that I land on 3 is because I do have students who don't want sync sessions at all. They're like, I'm in an online program, I shouldn't have to do any. And then I have students who are like, man, I really like sync sessions and being with people, and I wish we could have like sync sessions every other week. And we have professors in this program who run that entire gambit. We have professors who don't do sync sessions at all. We have professors who do 8 sync sessions in a 15-week class period, and I try to find the healthy medium. So my medium that I landed on was 3 sync sessions for my 15-week classes. That way those who don't want them at all can say, well, 3 is not too bad. And then those who want a lot can still be like, well, it's not as many as I want, but at least it's not none. And at least I do get some real time with my professor and with my classmates, okay? So with that said, we do have 3 sync sessions, and there is going to be a debate, and I'm going to talk more about that in a few minutes here. But first of all, the sync sessions are mandatory. You will lose points if you don't attend them. They are all this semester on Mondays from 7 to 8:30. On Monday, September the 14th, we are going to have our Intellectual Freedom panel, and that is going to include, we are going to have these people confirmed as of right now, at least, and hopefully I'll also have 1 or 2 other people join, and hopefully I'll also have a backup. But we have Tina Rollins, who is the library director of Hampton University, Jasmine Baylor, who is a librarian with Western Carolina University, Naomi Smith, who is a former librarian and a library consultant based out of London, England, and then also Jason Broughton, who is a federal librarian based in Washington, D.C. We'll talk about intellectual freedom and neutrality. Library neutrality is a big deal in intellectual freedom, but it's also not really a topic that I do well with because I have very basic views on library neutrality. And so you need to talk to some people or hear from some people who have more developed and more complicated views than what I have. Okay, so that's why we have that panel, and I do think y'all will enjoy them. People have, students have enjoyed Tina. This, I believe, is her 3rd time coming. People really enjoy her. Naomi was here last year. People really enjoyed her. And then also Jason and Jasmine are both very savvy with some of the things they say. So I think you will appreciate them as well. You will see that our last module is intellectual freedom and comedy. So what I try to do, and I'll come back to this as well, I try to bookend this class with a not so heavy topic the first week and a not so heavy topic the last week. So this week we have intellectual freedom on campus, which is kind of a lighter topic. And then the last week we have, again, intellectual freedom and comedy. And I do think that comedy is a good place to gauge intellectual freedom. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. And we'll certainly talk about that the night of on October 19th. But we will be visited by a professional comedian who actually has some work on Tubi, and she used to have a Showtime special that is now on Tubi. Um, and her name is Leanne Lord. She is veryfunnylady.com. She has also spoken at a library conference. Um, she's written, you can Google and find her piece. She's written a essay, a bit of a humorous essay about libraries and everything, but libraries are near and dear to her. Free thought is near and dear to her. Scientific inquiry is near and dear to her. If you're familiar with Star Talk Radio with Neil deGrasse Tyson, she is one of the former co-hosts of Star Talk Radio. Very brilliant woman, and I definitely think that y'all will enjoy her. She will be our featured speaker on October the 19th. And then October the 19th. On November the 16th, we will have a hate speech debate, and I will be looking for debate participants. So let's go ahead and talk about that now, but I'm also going to put an announcement about this in the course. Okay, so what we're going to do, and we're going to talk about hate speech and First Amendment exemptions throughout the first few weeks of the class, okay? There's a reason for that. There's a very important reason for that. And that is because there is a lot of misconception. I don't know where it comes from, but there's a lot of misconception in this field as to whether or not hate speech is constitutionally protected. In short, the answer is yes, it is. But in order for us to get there, what we're going to do in the first few weeks of this class is we are going to talk about the First and the 14th Amendment, at least as far as speech is concerned, and then we're going to talk about some of the exemptions to freedom of speech. And those do include, there's some things that are First Amendment exempt, meaning that these are forms of speech that are not protected by the First Amendment, and they do include things like libel, also fighting words, true threats, those sorts of things, okay? But hate speech is not one of those things. And you will hear librarians, I hear it all the time, where librarians talk about how hate speech is not protected by the First Amendment. Well, yes, it is. In fact, hate speech does not even have a federal definition. Whether or not it has state definitions throughout the various 50 states, that I don't know. But federally, there is no definition of hate speech, okay? So there are a lot of library science programs actually graduating students with incorrect information. They are graduating these students with them thinking that hate speech is not protected. And so what we need to do is uncover the fact that, yes, it is protected by the First Amendment. And from there, we need to talk about the intellectual freedom implications of hate speech. And one thing that I like to do is have this debate where we decide whether or not, not decide, but I have debate teams. Every single semester in this intellectual freedom class, what I do is in the final sync session, I host a debate, and there is a team that believes that hate speech should be protected by the First Amendment, and there's a team that argues that hate speech should not be protected by the First Amendment, and we have a debate. And students tend to enjoy that. Not every student wants to debate, of course, but there are students who actually do like to debate and do these kinds of things. So what I do is I look for volunteers. And so I'm going to need, and so that's what I'm talking about now, I'm going to need at least 6 of you to participate in the hate speech debate. It can be as few as 6 or as many as 9. But here's what's going to happen. And again, I'm going to put this in an announcement as well. So there's going to be a side that argues in favor of hate speech being protected by the First Amendment, and whether or not you actually personally agree with that as well, that doesn't matter, because there are people who actually participated in the debate and didn't agree with the stance that they were actually debating for, but they wanted just that opportunity to participate in the debate. So there's going to be one team that says that hate speech should be protected, and there's going to be one team that says that hate speech shouldn't be protected by the First Amendment. And then also, if I get 9 people who are interested in being in the debate that night, then I'm going to have a 9th person who is an moderator / alternate. And so basically what's going to happen there is I'm going to have teams of either 3 people or 4 people. That's how it's going to break down. So if not very many of you sign up and say, hey, I volunteer to potentially be a debate participant, then I need at least 6. And if I get at least 6, then those 6 will be 3 on one side, 3 on the other. If I get 8, then that's great. Then that means I'll have 4 on one side, 4 on the other. If I get 9 or more, then I am going to have to just decide, okay, I've got to poll some people. I won't be able to have everybody in there. But if I get a ninth person, that person will become the alternate. And by alternate, what I mean is if somebody has to drop out of doing the debate, and I did have a debate participant have to drop the class once, and so I put that alternate in where into the team that lost its member, basically. And so that ninth person was the alternate. But then if nobody drops out, then that ninth person becomes the moderator, and that person is my co-moderator, basically, and they help me run the debate that night, make sure that people are appropriate, they lead discussions with the audience during break times and things like that, okay? So all of that said, I'm going to need at least 6 volunteers. If I don't get 6 volunteers, then I'm actually going to pull people in. So if I only get 4 people who are like, yeah, I would like to participate in the debate, then I'm sorry, but what's going to happen is 2 people who did not volunteer are going to be randomly chosen and pulled into the debate. And the benefits for the debate, though, if you participate, then what that means is you're going to have an opportunity to, first of all, the people who participate in the debate do not have to do the final paper. Also, there's extra credit with the debate. And so with the extra credit, like basically the debate participants, as long as they don't mess up and as long as they're good teammates, they end up getting 25 points out of 20 on the final assignment. And so what they then tend to do, my debate participants then tend to take the last 2 weeks off, basically. Because basically when they get 25 points, every discussion board, and we'll get back to this in a few minutes, but every discussion board prompt is worth 2 points. And so if you get 25 points out of 20, then that's 5 extra points that you have just lying around. And so what those people end up doing is they're like, well, I put all that time into the debate, so I'm just going to go ahead and not do my discussion board posts for the last 2 weeks of class and focus on my other classes. And then 4 of those 5 points cover the points that they're missing for missing those discussion board prompts. So I hope that makes sense. If you need clarification for that, first of all, you will see it in writing in an announcement, but also if something about that doesn't make sense, just reach out to me and say, hey, Dr. Jace, I wasn't quite sure what you meant by that, and I will try to explain it further, okay? But those are the benefits of participating in the debate, as well as some people just honestly like to participate in debates. And then also, I remember who participates in my debates. So like, for instance, almost without a doubt, people who participate in the debates, they come back to me and they're like, hey, Dr. Jace, I need a letter of recommendation for a grad school program I'm about to enter, or I need a letter of recommendation for a job I'm applying to. Can I get you to write a letter of recommendation for me? And because those people participated in the debate, because I know they stepped up, they had initiative, that sort of thing, I'm just like, yeah, I got you covered. And I write a letter of recommendation, and I include in that letter of recommendation that those people took the initiative to participate in the debate, and that shows that they have initiative to be really good employees or really good students in future graduate programs, okay? So that's how that works. So you will see probably by Friday another announcement that talks about the debate a little bit more, and where I will be soliciting for people to volunteer to participate in the debate. That debate will take place on November the 16th, so it'll take place right before the Thanksgiving holiday. So that's another benefit. I have had the debates after Thanksgiving before, and people have, and I've had them both before or after Thanksgiving, and when I have them before Thanksgiving, the participants are very appreciative of, yeah, I was able to get that monkey off my back before Thanksgiving, and then I get to just enjoy my Thanksgiving holiday. Whereas people who do it after the Thanksgiving holiday tend to actually work on it during the Thanksgiving holiday. So take that for what it is. And yes, so if you are interested in the debate and debating, then be on the lookout for when I call for volunteers for the debate. All right. Okay, go ahead and take a break right here, and then we will come back and start going over that syllabus. All right, so now let's get into talking about this syllabus here, and let's go. Let's make me small here and get into it. So, course syllabus, you are in your intellectual freedom class. Course description, first, let's get your contact information from me. I'm sorry. I am Dr. Jace Alston. I am an instructor, associate teaching professor is my official title with the School of Information Science and Learning Technology here at Mizzou. I do have an office at UMKC, which is in Kansas City, at Miller Nichols Library, 122K. My email address is alstonj@missouri.edu. Also, please note that the Syllabus is subject to change with notice, and it probably will change. Whenever there is a change in the syllabus, I will send out a message letting y'all know. All right, course description. Intellectual freedom is very frequently held to be a fundamental value of librarianship. Because of its importance, librarians must be able to define it theoretically and practically in order to completely understand what it means so that it can be defended in practice. Collections, access, and services are all affected by how we define freedom. And as we will see, nothing about intellectual freedom is simple. There are going to be a lot of dilemmas in this class that are going to be hard to give a yes or no answer to. The course will address the topic of, the course will address this topic in principle and in practice. And please note, and I have this highlighted for a reason, please note that we discuss such topics as profanity, harassment, gender identity, racism, child pornography, religion, and sexuality in this course in a no-holds-barred fashion. So children should not be listening to the content of this course. I did get dinged in a previous teaching evaluation by somebody who was letting her child, for whatever reason, listen into the lectures and things like, well, the check-in videos and the discussions in this class. Please don't do that now, well, unless you are comfortable with them hearing what gets said, okay? And I don't think that little children should be hearing about some of the things that we are going to be talking about in this intellectual freedom class. This class is for adults. I mean, if you have teenagers within earshot, they're not going to be harmed because, quite frankly, what's being spoken about in middle schools and high schools is probably just as gritty as what we will talk about in here, if we're going to be completely honest. But yeah, don't have your little kids listening, and then when you hear a curse word, because I do use profanity in this course and lightly in all of my courses, to be honest with you. But if you do hear a bad word, or if you do hear something that is a contentious topic or an adult topic, don't get mad at me if your child hears it. Put the headphones on, okay? That is your warning. Now, with my other classes, for the most part, yeah, your kids can be in earshot. If you take my cultural heritage class, my reference class, my academic libraries class, if your kids hear what's going on in that, they're probably going to be okay. But this class, no. This class can be TV, MA, R-rated, all of that good stuff. Parental advisory, explicit content, okay? All right. There will be profanity used in this course by the instructors and by your classmates. Yes, you are allowed to curse in this intellectual freedom class. So you may want to wear headphones in the class, and you will likely be offended by something that I say or something that a classmate says to some degree, okay? And please learn how to deal with offense. One thing that I actually, there's a trend in libraries where they're pushing against this, and librarians are pushing against this idea of a library should have something in it that will offend everyone. There are librarians now who are going against that, and I'm old school. That was an old school saying, Gen X and before. Librarians at that point were saying, it's just the case. You're going to have something in your collection that's going to be offensive to everyone, as in, there's going to be, nobody should come into your library and think that everything is safe and nothing is ever going to offend them, unless maybe you're at a K-12 library or something. But otherwise, there's going to be something that you're not necessarily going to like at any library you go to. And now and I am a millennial, so I'm not taking a shot at millennials because I'm a millennial myself. But when it comes to millennials and Gen Z, I have seen them push back at that idea. No, people are going to be offended because people get offended by a lot of things anyway, and people get triggered by a lot of things. And so I'm not going to be here trying to cull my collection to make it safe for a certain group of people. What I am going to do is make sure that everybody who has benevolent, who has benevolent ideas, who has actual, what should I say? I'll put it this way. Everybody who's operating in good conscience, they can take something from a library that I'm building the collections for, or I'm building the services for, and say, okay, I'm okay with this, because they are trying to serve everybody. But when it comes to just, there are a lot of wannabe activist librarians out there, and they want to create these library spaces where there's just not going to be anything that a black person will find objectionable, or anything that a non-cis straight person is going to find objectionable and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, that's not the way it goes. Yes, I care deeply about marginalized groups, and I am, again, a Black man, part of a marginalized group. But I don't feel that I'm entitled to a space where I will not find something that I don't like, okay? And that's just unfortunately not how libraries roll. It can be how your personal library rolls, but the academic library, the public library, they just can't roll like that. And I wish that this activist current of librarians who are trying to create such spaces, I do kind of push back on that because I feel that they are inherently alienating a huge part of the communities that we serve when they place these kind of value judgments, especially when they place political value judgments. And we're tax supported, so we should be serving the entireties of these communities. We are here to serve all. But also, not everybody who sees things differently from us within the library mainstream is necessarily wrong or necessarily evil or necessarily trying to harm people. And we do have to I do feel that when we attach such extremist language to people who are simply of disagreement with us, we do run the risk of moralizing our opinions and becoming dogmatic ourselves. And I do feel that we should avoid becoming dogmatic, especially as a field within librarianships. Anyway, that's where I am with that. Let's go ahead and dive into the syllabus. Okay, so we have 4 course objectives. Understand the philosophical background and constitutional implications of intellectual freedom. Critique the entirety of the thought on intellectual freedom in librarianship and beyond. Realize the kinds of challenges that can arise and the reasons people give for them, and then understand the position of and the demands on the librarian regarding intellectual freedom, okay? There are going to be so many just things out there that we're just not going to agree on, just basically, and we're not going to come to a consensus on when it comes to ethical dilemmas in libraries and in library science. There's just too much going on out there. There are too many viewpoints. There are too many valid ways of thinking that still conflict with each other and that sort of thing. And so, unfortunately, we always want to come to a consensus. But one thing that this class is going to show you is that it's going to be very hard to come to a consensus in a lot of places. And one thing that I want to do is just kind of maybe leave this idea in your head that just because we fail to come to a consensus, that does not necessarily mean that somebody is right or wrong necessarily. And I don't believe that consensus building is always possible, but I don't think that it's always a bad thing when we fail to reach a consensus. And that's what we need to break. I think librarians are always trying to reach a consensus to the point where they feel that if a consensus is not reached, then we have failed, and I want to push back on that. Okay, so as far as course materials, there is no required textbook in this class. Course readings are available through Ellis Library and also through the open web. And you will need to read, listen to, or watch the news in order to keep up with this class. The MU Libraries page does have a newspaper page that you can follow some newspapers within. But one thing that I'm going to try to do every week is I am going to try to put the Intellectual Freedom Digest in the class every week. Okay, so I'm subscribed to the Intellectual Freedom blog. The American Library Association has an Office of Intellectual Freedom, and that Office of Intellectual Freedom runs an Intellectual Freedom blog, and they have a digest of intellectual freedom news that comes out every week, or at least every other week when they're short-staffed. And so I'm going to try to upload that intellectual freedom news into the class every week or every other week as a course announcement. So that is one way for you to just keep your eye on what's going on as far as intellectual freedom in this field, in this country. Not just in this field, they talk about intellectual freedom in other avenues as well with that Intellectual Freedom Digest. So I'm going to upload that pretty consistently, and so you won't necessarily, if you're not a news watcher, you won't necessarily have to start watching the news when you don't want to in order to do well in this class. I'm going to put some resources in the class that keep you relatively aware. All right, so course policy is participation. Regular participation in the discussions is required. You must post meaningful contributions in order to receive full credit, and while you are encouraged to bring personal experiences into the discussion, I do want you to also look toward the literature and outside of your personal experiences as well. Please show that you're listening to others, and please show that you are thinking critically. There are 15 discussion board weeks as indicated in the syllabus, and the discussions run through the units. If you want to take a weekend off, then what you need to do is simply finish posting by Friday. You are expected to answer the post questions by Wednesday. That's language that I have in the class, but I am going to talk about that in a minute. This is basically cover your ass type language here. But what I have at least written is that you are expected to answer post 2 questions or prompts by Wednesday of each week, and then respond to at least one of your classmates by Sunday evening. But I'm flexible with this. So essentially, what you need to do, and let me put it this way so that now I'm going to go beyond what is written to show you my human element in this. Okay, life is what it is. Life happens to people. People have a lot of bad things happen to them in life. There's a lot going on in every one of your lives, okay? Not one of you has an easy life, all right? So here's what I am going to say when it comes to this. As long as you get everything up by Sunday night, you are fine. Now, yes, ideally, I do want there to be at least some discussion board activity from at least 2 people by Wednesday, because as long as I have discussion board activity by at least 2 people by Wednesday, then basically, then those 2 people, they'll both have their post up, and then they'll have their response to each other up. And that way they will get both discussion board points, because I'll show you in a few minutes how the discussion boards work as far as points. But some of you are too busy to do anything with this class during the week, and you do everything on Saturday and Sunday. And that's fine. As long as you get everything done by Sunday, you are fine. So don't feel like you have to, like you just work 12 hours on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then you've got to come in and do some course reading and get something up by Wednesday night. No. If you work 60 hours a week and you work 12-hour days Monday through Friday, which I've had students who work that type of schedule in the past, and then the only days you have off are Saturday and Sunday, then by all means come in on Saturday and Sunday, do your readings, do your post, and then do your response to one of your classmates. Because, and I'll explain, actually I'll skip ahead here so that you understand what I'm talking about. Here is how the discussion board prompts work. There are 16 discussion board prompts, and each one is worth 2 points. So that's a total of 32 points. And the way this works is for each discussion board prompt, so for all 16 discussion board prompts, what you do is you get 1 point for an original post, and then you get 1 point for a response to a classmate. So 16 posts and then 16 replies, 1 point for each. That's 32 points. So I hope that's clear. If it's not, reach out to me and I will break it down further for you. Okay. But yes, having said that, I understand that life happens. So when bad things happen, or even when good things happen, reach out to me and let me know, and I am willing to work with you. If you need extensions for various things, you have loved ones die, whether they are immediate family or whether they are extended family or whether they are friends, even if they are pets, even if they are cats and dogs, let me know. I will work with you in those situations. Okay. I will give you an extension when someone or something you love dies. I will give you an extension when you are having health problems, as long as you talk to me. I will give you an extension when you go through something bad, like a very bad breakup, for instance. If you have something that's due on Sunday, but your boyfriend or girlfriend breaks up with you on Thursday, and you still are just in a complete wreck all throughout the weekend, let me know. I understand these things. I will give you an extension. And then even good things. If you get married on Saturday, I am not going to expect you to, on your wedding night, do my work so that you have it in on Sunday. Let me know. I will give you until Tuesday or Wednesday to turn that in, okay? Basically, just talk to me. I'm human. I get what humans go through. I understand what humans go through, and I want to have empathy for what humans go through. So let me know what you're going through when you go through something, and I'm more than happy to work with you to make things a little easier on you and consequently a little bit easier on myself, okay? So just let me know. Let me know, let me know, let me know. All right, late work. So I do have an official late work policy written in here that your grade will be lowered automatically by 25 points each day. Assignments are no longer accepted after 5 days of being late unless we've made previous arrangements. All of that is in the syllabus to protect me. But again, as long as you keep an open line of communication with me, you are going to be fine. Okay. Um, the I realize that y'all have lives and I'm willing to work with y'all, but please realize that it is unfair for me to be too relaxed with grading because some people really go out of their way to turn things in on time. So let's please make this classroom a place of mutual respect, okay? Grading, I will make every effort to get things graded and back to you within 2 or 3 weeks. Occasionally, I'm prevented to do this due to other things that I've got going on in the program, especially, and you all will notice this, y'all will see it. In October, I am going to slow down significantly, and I apologize for that, but I've got about 100 advisees, and October is when people really start reaching out to me for advising questions, advising guidance, so forth and so on. And then at the same time, October is also when admissions work begins. I am on the admissions team as well, so I review applications and decide who gets to become part of our program and who doesn't. That also takes a long time, and the advising and admissions work all hits me on top of everything else I've got going on in October, okay? So just know that, yes, October is a rough month, and I do fall behind every single October and every single March. I apologize, but it just is what it is, but I'll get things graded as quickly as I can. All right, communication. If you want to, you can have your announcements forwarded to your email account. If you don't know how to do that, then reach out to the help desk and they will assist you with that. Also, check your MU email on a regular basis because that's where I have to contact you when I need to reach out to you. I cannot reach out to you by personal email. That is a FERPA violation. And then also the inbox feature on Canvas is great, so you may use that as well. Please know that, yes, the announcements you are required to read the announcement text, okay, because that is my main way of communicating with my students. So if you are not reading the announcements and you miss information because you are not reading the announcements, that is not on me, that is on you. And yeah, I can hold you accountable for that, okay, because it is in the syllabus that you have to read the announcements. All right, grading and evaluation. So here is the point breakdown of how things are going to work in this class, how you are evaluated. Sorry. Point values for this class add up to 100 and are broken down as follows. We've already talked about the discussion boards. That's 32 points total. 16 discussion board prompts, including your intro, and 2 points each. 1 point for your post and 1 point for your reply to a classmate. 7 points for the midterm examination. 15 points for the sync session attendance. We have 3 sync sessions. Each one is worth 5 points. So that's 15 points total. 14 points for your banned book report discussion. So you're going to do a book report on a banned book. That's going to be worth 14 points. 20 points for your final paper, which again, if you are a debate participant, you will not have to do the final paper. And then 12 points for your intellectual freedom project, which is going to be your advocacy letter. Okay, that's going to be 100 points total. Your scale, 93 to 100 is an A, 85 to 92, a B, C is 75 to 84, and an F is a 74 or below. I do reserve the right to award pluses or minuses based on what I feel is exceptional effort or exceptional lack of effort. All right, so if you are somebody who really does a good job and goes all the way, you don't just try to settle for an A, you really blow my mind and you put 110% into everything every single time, and I can tell you're probably going to get an A plus instead of an A. By that token, if you know that you just need a 93 to get an A and you just do whatever it takes to bumble your way to that 93, you're probably going to have an A minus. But then also if you struggle with the content but you really tried your best, even if you struggled with it, and you got like a 91 or a 92, instead of just getting a B, you're probably getting a B plus. So that's how that works with the pluses and minuses. Very rarely do I have people get C's or F's in this class. Almost everyone gets an A, and then there are a few B's. All right, as far as due dates, we do have those sync sessions, September 14th, October 19th, and November the 16th. Throughout the semester for discussions, the First Amendment exam will be September the 27th. The banned book report will be October the 25th. Advocacy letter will be November the 15th, and then your final paper will be December the 13th. All of these due dates, the sync sessions are all on Mondays. These due dates for these things should all be on Sundays. If they're not, let me know. And then the final paper, I believe, for this class is also a Sunday. Sometimes I do the final paper as a Friday in some of my classes, but this one is a Sunday. 100 points possible. Now, we do have you do have help available as far as technology help. If you need to reach out to somebody with help with Canvas, email, whatever, reach out to the help desk, and that information is here. We've already talked about the sync session schedule, so I don't need to go back over that. AI statement. Unless students are explicitly told by me that you can use AI, then AI is not to be used in this class. I want to hear from you. I want to know how you think. I don't want to hear from AI. I really don't, okay? All right, so let's just make that clear. Academic integrity. This is boilerplate that should be on pretty much every syllabus, so I'm not going to get too deep into these things, but I am going to breeze through them really quickly. Intellectual integrity, or academic integrity, I mean, don't cheat. FERPA, I respect your privacy. I'm not going to tell people what your grades are. I'm not going to tell people things that they should not know about you. You are protected by FERPA, and I respect those protections. Intellectual pluralism. Now, we do need to appreciate diversity of thought in higher ed anyway, but especially in a class like intellectual freedom. And unfortunately, I think that we have kind of gotten away from that in this society. I think our society has gotten to a point where we no longer value intellectual freedom and diversity of viewpoints. And I do understand why, because now there are too many people. I feel that there are too many people being platformed, basically. And there are a lot of people who are not being platformed in good faith, okay? I think that there are a lot of people who are platformed who, instead of operating in good faith and making good faith arguments, they're just trying to be shock jocks, or they're trying to distract, or they're trying to exhaust, or whatever the case may be, but they're not trying to have an honest discussion. And because there's so many people like that out there now, I do think that this hurts our ability to have discussions and disagree, but still advance society, come to places where we can find common ground and try to advance society in that sort of way. We have lost our ability to do that, I feel, and I feel that that's very unfortunate. But it's in my classes, and especially in a class like intellectual freedom, I do want us to be in a place where we can respect that we're not always going to agree, but everybody can have the best interests of people in mind, even if they don't agree, or the best interests of society in mind if we don't agree. And we can start there. And if we start there, then we can at least find common ground, and we can, at least just try to, I don't know, just try to have a discussion that helps make society better and everything. I really wish that it was the case that everybody who engaged in discussions was really just trying to make society better. And if that were the case, then we would be a lot better off, even if we disagree. But unfortunately, there are people out there who are just engaging to make money, or just engaging to distract or to exhaust, and that sort of thing. And so that's where we're losing people now in the ongoing national debate, okay? So I hate that, but it is what it is. But in this class, intellectual pluralism is going to be discussed, is going to be appreciated and respected, and people are going to respect the diversity of opinions, even if those opinions vary greatly from your own. And I am going to have some opinions that some of y'all won't like, and y'all are going to have some opinions that I won't like, and that's okay. We need to learn how to be resilient in the face of being disagreed with. Okay. All right, mental health. Please do not suffer in silence, and I take this very, very seriously. I actually do have three diagnoses. I'm diagnosed with ADHD, generalized anxiety disorder, and I've been diagnosed also with severe depression. But I'll be honest, even though I have a severe depression diagnosis, I don't feel that I experience severe depression like that. But my therapist has noticed something, so I have been diagnosed with it. But generalized anxiety, you will notice probably my anxious symptoms and things like that. So everybody seems to notice it. And it just is what it is. But yes, if you are suffering, if you are having mental health issues, please reach out to somebody. reach out to the counseling center if nobody else, even if you can't get on campus counseling because you're not in the Mizzou area. They probably, in the Columbia area, they probably have some resources that they can point you to, okay? And certainly, please, if you have nobody else to reach out to, I am not a trained mental health professional, but I would rather you reach out to me than it be too late for anybody to reach out to you. So if you are on your last legs, first of all, if you're on your very last legs, please call 988, which is a suicide hotline. Please do that, because if you've got a crisis going on, we don't want to lose you. We absolutely don't want to lose you, and your family and friends don't want to lose you either. And there are people who care about you, even if you don't think there are. Even if you are in a point where you don't think anybody on this earth cares about you, please know that somebody does, okay? So if you are about to end it all, don't call somebody. And if I'm the only person you can get a hold of, if you email me and you're like, I got to talk to somebody, all right, talk to me. I'm going to do what I can. I'm not a mental health professional, but I'm going to do what I can, because we can't lose you, okay? Netiquette. Just know that, things that you may have meant to be humorous might not come off humorous, especially in an online environment. It's just kind of hard to gauge. So just be mindful about that sort of thing, okay? That's all I need to say about that. You can read over that for further details if you'd like. But yeah, we're going to try to create a place of mutual respect here, okay? And as long as we have mutual respect going on, I think we're going to be all right. Religious holidays and accommodations. I am a Christian myself, but I'm also a former atheist, so I do know that there are a variety of things that people believe in and a variety of holidays. I will make accommodations to your holiday observances and that sort of thing when you need those accommodations, okay? If you're Muslim, if you're Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever the case may be, even if you are atheist, which is really not a religion, it's a lack of religion. But even if you are an atheist, but you're like, hey, I want to celebrate a Festivus for the rest of us, just let me know. We'll work something out, okay? But yeah, the main thing is have a dialogue with me, have a discussion with me. I want y'all to always feel comfortable coming to me. I don't want to seem intimidating at all, because quite frankly, I'm not intimidating. And yeah, so yes, please just come talk to me, and whatever accommodations I feel are reasonable, we're going to make those accommodations for you. Non-discrimination policy. I cannot discriminate against you based on race, color, national origin, ancestry, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, age, disability, veteran status, or any other status as protected by applicable state or federal law. Nor do I want to. If you feel that you have been discriminated against, then reach out to the Office of Institutional Equity. Also, if you feel that you have been harassed or something like that by either myself or a fellow student, if you feel like you've been harassed by me, then yeah, you need to reach out to the Office of what was it called again? Because we used to just call it the Title IX Office of Institutional Equity. All right. So, but if one of your classmates has said something and it made you uncomfortable or made you feel some kind of way, you can reach out to them for that as well. Or you can reach out to me and say, hey, Dr. J's this, that, please talk to me. And we'll proceed from there. Now, I will warn y'all, I am a mandated reporter. So if you bring something to my attention and it does seem like it's harassment or something of that nature, I'm mandated to report it. So I do want to let y'all know that, but hopefully y'all won't be intimidated to reach out to me just because I am a mandated reporter. I am hoping that we get to a point where you feel that, oh, well, yeah, he's a mandated reporter, but I don't feel that this is something that necessarily needs to be reported, and I don't want to go all the way to the equity office for this. Maybe I can just talk to the professor and come up with a happy medium there, or a happy compromise or something there. A resolution, that's the word I'm looking for there. Hopefully we can get there. A lot of times we can get there, and if we can get there, then almost certainly let's get there, folks. All right, students with disabilities, if you have a disability, please also, again, just like with mental health, don't suffer in silence. If you got some sort of disability, let me know. Well, not just let me know, in fact, scratch that. You can let me know as well, but also reach out to the disability office, because you may be entitled to some accommodations. And if you are entitled to accommodations, then I want you to have those accommodations. So they will reach out to me and we'll come up with an accommodation plan and that sort of thing. And we will accommodate whatever disabilities you have. They're the experts as far as establishing accommodation plans. So yeah, we do need to reach out to, you do need to reach out to them. Please do so. And they will come up with an accommodation plan that I will follow. And we will make sure that you are successful. Okay. So that is the dry run of the syllabus. Now is a time to take another break. After you take this break, we're going to run through the modules and then we'll run through the assignments. But take a break now and then we'll go into the modules and talk about what we'll be talking about over the course of the next 15 weeks. Thank you, pause. All right, welcome back. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the modules that we are going to go through over the course of the next 15 weeks. I'm going to let you know what these modules are. You see them in the class anyway, but I'm going to let you know what they are, why we have them, and add a little bit of context to them, just so that you can get a feel for the purpose of this course and what I am trying to do, okay? So let's go ahead and make me small here. And again, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I do have two bookend modules on week 1 and week 15. The week 1 bookend module and these bookend modules are kind of they're in place to make things a little lighter. So you come in with a little bit lighter of a topic and then you leave with a little bit lighter of a topic. And, you know, I feel that that's just the way to kind of preserve the healthiness, I guess, of the courses we are coming in and out of it. So week number 1, we will talk about controversial speakers on campus. Campus free speech has always been a big deal, and as we know from last fall, and this happened during my intellectual freedom class last fall, and it really was a big deal, and it really shaped how the rest of the semester went, honestly. But y'all probably remember that Charlie Kirk was killed on a college campus last year, and that's something that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. As somebody who was a big somebody who just despised Charlie Kirk and his rhetoric. And quite frankly, I did find it racist and race baiting and things of that nature. And so I was never a fan of Charlie Kirk. But one thing that I feel that college campuses should be the safest places on earth to actually express opinions. There are times when opinions and viewpoints, you don't need to be expressing them. You don't need to be telling everybody at whatever work meeting you're at, or at your job, at your church, at family reunions even, or at social gatherings, even at the bar. I know that a lot of people go to the bar and they sit and have a beer and just have a relaxing moment, but people don't need to know all of your opinions in those situations. But I think that college campuses are a place where there should be free exchange and gritty exchange, as long, again, as these things are done in a fashion that is, in good faith. And unfortunately, there's no way to assess whether or not people are actually operating in good faith, and that's something that is a bit harmful. But if we're assuming that everybody is operating in good faith, which they aren't always, but if we assume that, then college campuses should be the place where, as long as you're speaking in good faith, we should be able to have a discussion about anything. And again, I don't think that's necessary at a lot of other venues, even when people try to force it. Nobody needs to go to a church and necessarily try to start a debate about whether or not God exists. Nobody needs to go to a gay pride parade and start trying to talk about whether or not gay people are going to hell and that sort of thing. It's not necessary. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's the place for it most of the time. But people do that sort of thing, and I feel it causes more distraction, disruption, and division than anything else. But on a college campus, we should be able to have those discussions. Yes, on a college campus, and this may be something that y'all don't agree with, but this is where I'm at. On a college campus, you should even be able to, as long as it's in good faith, and assuming it's in good faith, you should be able to have discussions like, should people be able to, you should be able to have a discussion about, does God exist on a college campus and not have to worry about being physically attacked or harmed. You should be able to have a discussion about whether or not abortion should be illegal or not, and not have a not have an issue with somebody being potentially harmed. And no, I don't feel, and this is not going to go over well, I'm sure, but no, I don't feel that people should be going to abortion clinics and protesting outside of abortion clinics and then expecting their own safety when they're out there antagonizing people who are going to the abortion clinics. No, I don't think that should be happening. Yes, you do have the right to do that, but also I think there's a need to just be appropriate. No, being at that abortion clinic trying to preach against abortion, you don't need to do that. Have that discussion on the college campus first, I feel, and then we can take it up with, we can take it up with other avenues later, but that's not the place to protest. Again, I just don't feel that way. I don't feel that gay pride parades are the place to protest whether or not whether or not, oh, God's going to have some judgment on gay people. No, have that discussion on a college campus. Bring your theology against, bring your theology against the theology of others and against the ideology of others on the college campus, but don't interrupt the proceedings of that gay pride parade to, even if you are somebody who really thinks that gay people go to hell and you're trying to save them, which I don't agree with, have that discussion somewhere else other than the gay pride parade. That's kind of how I feel. I think that there needs to be some respect. And you can disagree with that, and it's okay to disagree with me as far as if you think that those discussions should be had everywhere. But I don't feel they should be had everywhere, but I do think college campuses are where you can have any discussion, or should be able to have any discussion, and not worry about an angry person retaliating against you physically, okay? So I did have, I was not happy that Charlie Kirk was murdered, not at all, because the college campus, and I'm sure he was probably saying some anti-black stuff that I wouldn't like, but the college campus is where he should be able to say it. However you feel about that, let me know. All right, so yes, free speech on campus, that's what we start out with, and then we start getting into the first few weeks. We speak about the First Amendment and how the First Amendment works with the 14th Amendment in order to preserve our rights to free speech, okay? So we start with that, but then, and by the way, I do want to note, you'll see all of these things from James Rich throughout the semester. So James Rich, he was one of my students in my first ever intellectual freedom class, and he is a former lawyer, also former military, and now he does some sort of librarianship somewhere. He was at UNLV for a while, but I think he got a better job somewhere. One of the smartest people I've ever encountered, and just because he also had that law degree and I don't, he had a very interesting and mature perspective on a lot of the topics that we talk about in this class. So I have retained, he gave me the permission to include his comments in future classes, and I've done that. So if you want to hear from somebody who has a JD, a Juris Doctorate, regarding these topics, and not just from a professor. Yes, I did take a First Amendment law class. I do want y'all to know that. When I was working with my PhD, I did take a First Amendment law class, and that's why I do have some qualifications to talk about these things. But I don't have the degree, and I never practiced law. So, somebody who does have the degree was somebody that I felt his thoughts needed to be included in the class, okay? All right, so Module 1, First and 14th Amendment Basics. Module number 2 is when you start talking about First Amendment exemptions. So these are forms of speech and expression that are not protected by the First Amendment, and they include obscenity, child pornography, fighting words, and true threats. We continue with that into the 4th week with defamation, blackmail, and incitement to lawless action. These things are also not protected by the First Amendment. And then we do talk about, yes, hate speech is protected. And we talk about and have some materials that affirm that hate speech is protected by the First Amendment. And again, a lot of librarians, for some reason, will tell you that it's not. You will have this discussion with when you go to library conferences. So this is being taught at library schools for some reason. And again, I don't know why it's being taught this way, and it needs to stop. But there are a lot of librarians out here who will tell you first that hate speech is not protected by the First Amendment. Well, it is. And if you ask them to cite the case law that shows that hate speech is not protected by the First Amendment, they'll never be able to do so. Okay. Now, hate speech is not protected speech in a lot of Europe. and that's something that we'll talk about as well, and some things that you'll read up on that as well. So you'll read that the combating hate speech and hate crime in the European Union, why America needs a hate speech law. This is an op-ed, and then also counter op-ed, no, the U.S. does not need European-style hate speech laws, because yes, you can be convicted for hate speech in a lot of places within the European Union, but that's not a thing here in America. All right, library neutrality. That is, again, a topic that I mentioned earlier is not a topic that I do well with. So that's why I bring in the panel. The panel is actually going to come in before we actually reach the module, but you'll have plenty of readings and perspectives to look over in the module as well. Week number 7, we will talk about, we actually have 2 weeks worth of book banning stuff. Book banning and challenges. We start out with just in general and historical. But then things have taken on a little bit of a different element in recent times and in the age of Make America Great Again. By the way, it's fine. You will see from a lot of the things that I say in this class, and I'm not a Trump supporter and I'm not a Republican. I'm actually a political moderate, but I am a registered Democrat. Or at least I was in North Carolina. Now I can't remember if Missouri makes you register with a party or not. But I always vote on the Democratic I vote on the Democratic ballot in the primaries in this state. So even if I'm not a registered Democrat, quote unquote, I'm still voting in the Democratic primary. And I've only voted for a Republican twice. It was the same person, the Steve Trotzler, the former Secretary of Agriculture for the state of North Carolina, who I knew personally, and that was I voted for him twice. He's the only Republican I've ever voted for. But I am a political moderate. Now, in the library world, where things are very far to the left, a lot of people have they have accused me of being a conservative. I'm really not. It's just that in librarian company, yes, I'm a little more to the right than a lot of librarians are, but that does not make me a mainstream conservative. I'm actually a mainstream moderate. Okay, and I will talk about how my moderate politics do play into how some things go and how I interact with people in this field and elsewhere when it comes to intellectual freedom. Okay, intellectual freedom in juveniles, so that's a big deal. We do need to protect the rights of kids as well. And when I say kids, I do mean teenagers as well, people who are under the age of 18. And we go on from there with various scenarios that you will find in libraries. Week 10, we'll talk about meeting rooms, civic spaces, and programs. Week 11, we turn to patron and user privacy and confidentiality. Week 12, because I did say week 11, right? Week 11 is patron and user privacy and confidentiality. Week 12 is filters and filtering. Week 13 is actually a big deal. I probably should have moved this topic up, so I apologize that I didn't. But week 13 is an important topic: libraries, librarianship, and libraries, and self-censorship. Self-censorship is a big deal, and we'll talk about why that is happening in libraries, because it actually does happen in libraries a lot more than ideally it should. And then from there we'll go on to talk about collection development and management concerns. And then finally in week 15, that's when we will end on intellectual freedom and comedy. And there is a reason why, again, I like to do the thing with comedy when it comes to intellectual freedom, because I do feel, and I'll have a video about this, I'll have this in a check-in video at some point, but I feel that intellectual freedom in comedy is very, very important, because comedians should be able to get away with things that everybody else, no, don't get me wrong, I think that everybody else should have their freedom of speech, as long as they are not violating those. I believe that freedom of speech should, again, be exercised in good taste. I really do. But yes, I do believe that, everybody should have their freedom of speech and their intellectual freedom, so long as it doesn't violate those First Amendment exemptions. So as long as it's not obscenity, child pornography, true threats, fighting words, those sorts of things. But I also think that comedians are able to use freedom of speech in a way that the rest of us just not are able to exercise it. There's a special duty that comes with being a comedian, and we'll talk about this more during Leanne Lord's visit as well. But there are some things that comedians can kind of do and kind of get away with that the rest of us would not necessarily be able to get away with. And one person that I think about a lot when it comes to this, if you've ever seen the comedy of Anthony Jeselnik, he has at least 3 stand-up comedy specials on Netflix, and they are he says some things that if you didn't see that he was saying them in jest and as funny, then you would be like, oh my God, what he's saying is horrible. But that's the thing. Anthony Jeselnik is one of these people that I think has a very gifted way of saying the most despicable things, not to promote the despicable idea, but to make the despicable idea seem so absurd that you have to actually laugh at the absurdity of it, because you know that, yes, people have these ideas, and thankfully most people who have them keep it to themselves. But people have these ideas, but they know that they would be lambasted for actually expressing these ideas in public, and rightfully so. Well, Anthony Jeselnik has a way of saying these actually grotesque things, but saying them in a way where it is apparent to people that what he is saying is being said in jest. And when he's able to do that, it kind of helps you cope with the fact that, yes, what he is saying and what he's promoting is ridiculous, but he is promoting it in a way that makes you know that it's so ridiculous that you can't even take it seriously. You just have to laugh at it. So I hope that makes sense. If you watch any of his specials, then you'll probably really get a sense for what I'm saying there. But you may have to watch one of his specials to actually get it. Okay. All right. So there is that. And I am going to go ahead now and make myself small here. So we've gotten through the modules. And again, I hope that all of this has helped explain why you have these modules. We have a lot of First Amendment stuff. And there are mixed reactions from the students as to whether or not they like it. But again, what I'm trying to do is, this is to inform you that a lot of what librarians believe is actually protected and unprotected speech. And a lot of what librarians will say is protected and unprotected speech. They're wrong, okay? And, and I thankfully have taken a law class that has shined the light on me to let me know that they're wrong in these regards, but not everybody has done that. And so for those who have not done it, hopefully y'all will be able to educate those people in the future at library conferences. You'll be able to check, or in library discussions on social media or wherever, because these library discussions happen all the time. You'll be able to say, hey, no, you're actually wrong about this. Let's draw this back and get some accurate information out there. So that's why we have those first few weeks of First Amendment stuff. Library neutrality is a very important topic, even if it's not something that I really enjoy talking about. And then we go into dilemmas that librarians face every day. So I like to give y'all a taste of what you may be confronting in the field before you actually go out into the field and confront it. All right. All right. Now is the time to take a break, a good time to take a break. And after you take a break, we will come back for assignments. Pause. So your assignments, you have 3 major assignments in this class. Well, actually you have more than 3 major assignments. What I meant was you have 3 major written assignments in this class. And so we're going to talk about those really quickly here. I do feel that the prompts are self-explanatory, and plus I'll talk about them a little more in depth when we are coming closer to the time for these assignments. So you do have your band and challenge book reports. So book reports, I'm sure that all of y'all did book reports in elementary and middle school. And so this is actually kind of harkening back to the old days of your elementary and middle school book reports. But you're not just going to be doing any book. You're going to be doing banned books. So banned books, and by the way, the definition of a banned book, according to the American Library Association, a banned book is a book that has been removed from library shelves or pulled from a library because of or in direct response to a challenge. So a lot of people like to get on social media and say, hey, that book isn't banned. You can actually get that book at Amazon. You can get that book anywhere. Just buy that book for yourself. It's not a banned book. Well, when we as librarians are talking about banned books, we are using ALA's definition as our authoritative definition. And so for us, a banned book is not a book that has been just burned everywhere and you can't find it anywhere. For us, if a book has been removed from a library shelf as a direct response to a challenge to that book, then that book is a banned book. Okay, so yeah, take that for what it is. All of the books so there are a number of books here that I have basically assigned. And I like to mix it up. So there's a one thing that happens. People talk about banned books a lot at conferences and things like that. It becomes a point of, and again on library social media, so it becomes a place for actual discussion and having like interaction and that sort of thing. Is talking about banned books. That's one of the things that librarians generate discussions and socialize around. But what I will say is that traditionally we've only talked about the classics of the banned books, the Huck Finns and the Catchers in the Rye, and the 1984. These books that have been banned for decades and decades and decades. And so what you will see, and again, everybody is assigned a banned book here that's in the class, or if you have not been assigned one, or if you've been assigned more than one, or if you like to switch or whatever, let me know. But you'll see your name to the left of a book, and the book that you have been assigned is the book that your name appears to the left at. So if you see a book like the Satanic Verses right here, if you see a book that doesn't have a name to the left of it, that means that that book is actually unassigned this semester. So hopefully that will thwart any confusion. But as you can see, I don't just have the classics. I don't just have the Huck Finns and the Color Purples and things, the Catchers in the Rye and things that have been banned for decades. I do have some things that were published. The most recent one that I have is Last Night at the Telegraph Club. That was published in 2021, but I have some things that were published in the 90s, in the 2000s, in the 2010s. So I like to get a little bit of a mix there. But again, you can switch, but these are the things that I want you to start out with. And you don't actually have to read the book. You can read, you can actually get by on Cliff Notes. That's really the only way to make this fair, because if somebody has a long banned book by The Color Purple, and then somebody has And Tango Makes Three, which is a very short children's book, both have been banned. Well, the person, of course, who has The Color Purple, if I required you to read the actual book, would have to spend a lot more time than the person who read And Tango Makes Three, okay? So, yeah, take that for what it is, but if you want to switch books, then by all means, just let me know. But you'll have a banned book report, and you'll talk about the banned book, why it was banned, and that sort of thing. You'll see additional information in the prompt there. And that this will come around the time of our banned books modules. It's not, I don't think it's during the exact time of the modules, but it's around that same time, okay? The other two major written assignments, first you're going to have well, not first, but second, because that's the first. But the second is going to be your advocacy letter assignment. That's going to be due on November the 15th. And basically what you're going to do is you are going to write an advocacy letter about a controversial topic, or a topic that has a situation that has generated controversy. When I start uploading things from the Intellectual Freedom Log, the Intellectual Freedom Digest, I should say, those news things, if you skim through those, you will find interesting things, and you can probably take a position on one of those things to do your advocacy assignment, or you can do something else. You can, if you're not sure whether or not a situation you want to talk about really fits the spirit of the assignment, let me know. Reach out to me, ask me, and I will tell you yes or no, or let's refine it. And you do have examples of an advocacy letter. Actually, an LIS professor, Dr. Kawana Bright, wrote an advocacy letter that I use as an example, but you can have more bite to your letter if you want. And then the ACLU actually has a guide on how to write a letter to the editor. So that's something that I would encourage you to look at as you approach that assignment. That'll be worth 12 points. And then your final major written assignment is going to be your final paper, which will be basically there we go. It's going to be worth 20 points, and basically you're just going to write a term paper, a 7 to 10 page term paper on an intellectual freedom issue of your choice. And you're just going to tell me the history of it, the current situation going on with it, and then you can tell me your opinion about how it's going to look in the future. And I do want you to, though, to incorporate some sources even in the future. That's going to be mostly your opinion, calling what you think is going to happen in the future, but I want you to base that, excuse me, on trends and on things that you have seen or things that have been written about and documented, okay? So that you're not just making some blind prediction, you're actually basing your predictions and evaluations on something that's actually the case, all right? Now, you also do have, I do just want y'all to be aware, you do also have a First Amendment examination that you will take toward the end of September. That's going to be worth 7 points. It's 7 questions worth 7 points, and it will be open book. I want that to be known, so you can actually go back and you can have one browser open with the quiz, and then you can have another browser open with some of your readings from the class or Google or whatever. So it is open book, so I'm expecting you all to do just fine on that quiz, but I do just want to make sure that you took some of the key concepts away from our First Amendment readings and that sort of thing. All right. Okay, and so that is pretty much it for the course overview. I do wrap these up by discussing myself a little bit. So I'll probably do that for about the next 10 minutes, and so this will be a 90-minute. I know I said 2 hours. Thankfully, we shaved 30 minutes off that. And then, of course, if you sped this video up, then it's not going to really be 90 minutes. It's going to be more of an hour long. And again, I told you where to take breaks, so there's that as well. But yes, let me just tell you who I am, and I'm also going to tell you a few things that I say to every class every single semester. So and it's not meant to make you feel uncomfortable. I'm just contextualizing who I am and my interactions with being a professor here at Mizzou. So I am, for those of you who have not had me before, I am Jason Alston, aka Dr. Jace. You can also just call me Jason or Jace or whatever. I don't get too formal into the doctor this, doctor that, because there are so many people with doctorate degrees these days. It just feels like I can't go anywhere without meeting people who have doctorate degrees, and so that I don't think my having a doctorate degree is honestly that special, but it is something that helped me get this job, so that's what it is. But most people just affectionately call me Dr. Jace. I am from Soul City, North Carolina, which is a real place. You can Google that. It's on the Virginia border, founded by civil rights leader Floyd McKissick. I did spend my teenage years in the Richmond, Virginia area, graduated from Meadowbrook High School in 2001. I had a bachelor's in English from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, which I earned in 2005. I got a master's degree in library science from North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina in 2008. And then in 2017, I finished my PhD in library and information science from the University of South Carolina. I have work experience in libraries now for 18 years, and that does include, but I've been in the field for 20 years because I started as a library science student in August of 2006. So that was exactly 20 years ago. My first librarian job, well, first of all, I worked as a newspaper reporter for 3 years prior to finishing my library science degree. So I worked for the Henderson Daily Dispatch in Henderson, North Carolina as a staff reporter from 2005 until 2008. In 2008, I got a job as the first diversity resident librarian for the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. I was there for 2 years, and I spent a year and a half as a adult services librarian for Forsyth County Public Library in inner city Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So I know what it's like to work in an inner city public library and everything that comes along with that. So I do have academic and public library experience, which goes a long way in teaching a class like this. I worked, while I was working on my PhD, I also worked as a reference librarian reference and instruction librarian for Midlands Technical College in Columbia, South Carolina. I did that for 4 years, and then I got a job as a business librarian for Coastal Carolina University in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and worked there for a year and a half. I left Myrtle Beach for reasons I couldn't tell you today. But I left Myrtle Beach to come to Kansas City. I regret that every single winter. But definitely I have been here in Kansas City since 2018. I started with Mizzou in 2018, but they stationed me in Kansas City, and I actually used to do a little bit of work for UMKC in exchange for my office being there, but now Mizzou has me teaching for Mizzou full time because they needed my staff power given the growth of the program and also losing a faculty line. So I've been now with Mizzou for 8 years. I enjoy it. Hopefully I'll be here till I retire. And I am an associate teaching professor now, so I have been promoted one time. I do want to close out by saying that one thing that you notice about me by this point, and I mentioned it earlier in the video, I am Black, and that's something that I do kind of like to talk about when I am teaching my classes, just to, again, give you some perspective on why that would even be relevant for me to bring up. So, when I was working on my PhD at the University of South Carolina, I had really good teaching evaluations. People just kind of understood me. I would get teaching evaluations that would say, hey, he's real, he's relatable, he's one of us. And that is the thing. Like, I'm a Southern guy. And in the South, even in rural areas, you will find a lot of Black people because of plantations and things like that, plantation culture. I actually, growing up in Warren County, North Carolina, my ancestors were enslaved in that same county. So my people have been in that same county for centuries. When I moved to Missouri and started teaching from Mizzou, I communicated the same way I did with my Southern students. And instead of he's real, he's relatable, he's one of us, the feedback I was getting on my teaching evaluations for my first 3 semesters here was he's aggressive, he's abrasive, he's defensive, he makes me uncomfortable, all of these things. And the first semester I was like, what is this? What's even going on? And then I started kind of exploring Missouri a little bit, and then I realized what's going on. Okay, yeah, I have students who, for one thing, it's very uncommon in the South for people to grow up and never have a Black teacher ever. And I've learned that in the Midwest, that is often the case. People will grow up in places like Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, and they'll get all the way to graduate school, and I'll be the first Black instructor they ever had. And when people are not used to Black people, we do communicate in a certain way, and I had to communicate in a certain way as a Black man growing up in the rural South to let people know that I wasn't to be played with. But, there was something that was respected about that. And now in the Midwest, that type of communication does not go over. I'll just tell you right now, I can't communicate with Midwesterners the way I did with Southerners. And so I've had to change my communication style a lot. But I say all that to say that what I want y'all to kind of reflect on is when you are dealing with me, first of all, just know that, again, I've changed. I basically do my Wayne Brady impersonation. I make sure that I'm somebody that my Midwestern audience feels comfortable with. There's a skit from the Chappelle Show about Wayne Brady, if you're not familiar with that. That's what it's had to be. But what I'll say is I don't mind because I've come into a space. So one thing that happens in the South a lot is a lot of people from the Northeast, they move to the South. North Carolina is actually the fastest growing state. From people moving in, at least. And so you get a lot of people from New York and New Jersey, Philadelphia, all these places, and they come to North Carolina, and then they talk about how slow people from North Carolina are, how stupid we are, all these things. And it's just like, yo, I mean, if you don't like how we are around here, then go back. You know what I'm saying? We like we like our slower pace. We like our friendly pace. We like the laid back style that we have going on here. And if y'all don't like it, nobody asked you to come here. Well, same thing is going on with me in the Midwest. Like, at first I was just like, yo, these Midwesterners, they need to get used to people being different. But then I was like, you know what? I sound just like, that's just like the New Yorkers trying to make us adjust to them when they came to our homes. When I come to the Midwest, now I do have to change my communication style and my way of going about things to, in order to, I don't want to say assimilate, but I do want to operate in the culture without disturbing the culture. I do care about culture, and I don't want to disrupt the culture of the Midwest. So I've changed my approach, and what I ask is that you meet me halfway. Yes, I'm going to have a gentler approach to y'all than I did to my students in the South, but what I would ask in return is if you feel that I'm abrasive or aggressive or all these things, just ask yourself, is it really me, or is there some bias on your part? okay? And I want y'all to just kind of be mindful of that because you are, yeah, you may have grown up in a place that's not very diverse in the Midwest, but there are cities, metropolitan areas that are diverse in the Midwest. So you might have grown up in rural Kansas or in rural Missouri, but if you start working for Kansas City Public Library, or if you start working for the library in Topeka or Wichita or Omaha or wherever, Chicago, wherever, you are going to encounter people who are not like you, and you do have to learn how to adjust to the nuances and communication style with people who are not like you, okay? So I always end on that note, but I think that we're going to be fine. I think we're going to have a successful semester together, and I look forward to doing that. Again, just know that even if I seem harsh and if I seem like somebody who's got some opinions that are not necessarily your opinions, that doesn't mean we can't work through them. That doesn't mean we can't find common ground, and we do need to try to at least find a way to communicate and make things work for all of us. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's have a successful semester together. I am Dr. Jason. Welcome to the beginning of this race. We will see you next week with another check-in video that will be significantly shorter. All right, have a good week and see you in the discussion boards.